Franz Joseph Gall versus Paul Broca, Brain Functions, by Corey Cowan and Shane Gasman. Franz Joseph Gall was a German anatomist, physiologist, and a faculty psychologist. He lived from 1758 to 1828.
Paul Broca was a French physician, surgeon, anatomist, and anthropologist. He lived from 1824 to 1880.
Franz Joseph Gall was a faculty psychologist, which means he believed that faculties of the mind act on and transform sensory information. However, he changed the traditional view of faculty psychology by elaborating on it. He added 3 different things to it. 1. Mental faculties do not exist to the same extent in everyone. 2. Faculties are housed in specific areas of the brain. And 3. A well-developed faculty would lead to a bump on the skull that corresponded to where the faculty is located in the brain. The same was true for an underdeveloped faculty. An underdeveloped faculty would leave a depression on the skull that corresponded to where the faculty is located in the brain. Gall's idea of examining bumps and depressions of the skull was called phrenology. Gall also believed that examining the bumps and depressions on someone's skull would help to determine the magnitude of their faculties. Phrenology is considered the thing that Gall is most famously known for. However, he also contributed to the field of psychology in other ways. Gall was the first to relate personality traits to brain functions. He was also the first to suggest a relationship between the cortical development and mental functioning. This idea was that the bigger the cortices, the more intelligent the person would be. He was also the first to distinguish the difference between white matter and gray matter.
Broca used the clinical method, which is used to determine a behavioral disorder in a living patient. After the patient died, Broca could then conduct an autopsy to determine which area of the brain was responsible for the disorder. One of the things he worked on was a patient who couldn't talk for over 30 years and lived in an insane hospital in Paris. This patient could still hold a conversation through signs and could display a level of intelligence, but could not talk. Broca saw the patient for 5 days and concluded the musculature of the larynx and articulatory organs had no problems, and there was no evidence of any other paralysis that could interfere with the patient's speech. Broca came to the conclusion that there must be something wrong within the patient's brain. Fortunately for science, the patient passed away and Broca was able to perform an autopsy. Broca found a lesion in the 3rd frontal convolution of the left cerebral hemisphere. Later research confirmed Broca's observation that a portion of the left cortical hemisphere is implicated in speech articulation and production. This area of the brain is now called Broca's area.
One of the things that led from Joseph Gall to Paul Broca is that they both believed that centralized areas of the brain would have specific functions. So even though Gall was one of the first to come up with this idea of localization, Broca took that further and found an area that had a specific function. Another scientist, Jean-Baptiste Billiard, had come to the same conclusion as Broca on the localization of a speech area in 1825. Many years before Broca's conclusion. However, Billiard was associated with phrenology, and the scientific community was very cautious about anyone associated with phrenology or Franz Joseph Gall. Therefore, Broca gets most of the credit for this idea.